Hello again, everyone. Welcome to Washington Gun Law TV. I am Washington Gun Law President William Kirk. Thanks for joining us. Hey, as you know, I routinely joke that I am oftentimes late to the party. I can be one of the last people to get a video out there when an issue kind of breaks that everyone is all excited about. It happens for a couple of reasons. One, as I do mention, I do occasionally still practice law, and so sometimes I might not be able to just jump right in front of a camera and get a video out right away. And when there's a delay in being able to do that, what I oftentimes do will intentionally go all the way to the back of the line. I kind of want to see what everyone else has to say. I kind of want to see how the emotion rolls, and it allows me to be a little bit more mindful and sometimes perhaps better reflect and come back at it with a different angle or a different intellectual approach to it. What we're going to talk about today is President Joe Biden's sudden decision to pardon his son Hunter. Now, I think a lot of people on both sides of the aisle have been screaming that this was a bad idea. I will join the chorus of those who believe it's a bad idea, but for a much bigger and actually in some ways much more important reason. So today, let me explain why, and let's talk about the real problem with the Hunter Biden pardon. Well, and just to give people the type of understanding of the financial catastrophic occurrence that occurred, you and I are both privy to people who have been involved in lawful self-defense situations, pulled the trigger with legal justification, faced potential legal consequences, and had to fight for their freedom. Didn't have coverage. How much money did it cost them to win their freedom?
You know, I really don't think that people really can grasp the magnitude of expenses. Most recently, and you and I have talked about this in the past, the Kyle Rittenhouse case brought a lot to light.
Right to bear, that's right. Legal protection for self-protection. Listen, good lawyers aren't cheap. Cheap lawyers aren't good. You're not truly prepared unless you have right to bear back you. You will always get an attorney-answered hotline, so you will always have a confidential phone call. There are no cap limits for either civil or criminal defense. This covers all forms of self-defense. So from a fist to a firearm, from a fat lip to a dead body, you are covered, and you will have some of the nation's most passionate 2A attorneys in your corner fighting for you. And right now, if you visit my friends at protectwithbear.com and you use the promo code WGL, you will receive 10% off. Listen, you need to protect yourself so that you can protect them. Visit my good friends at protectwithbear.com. Okay, America, this is what we are talking about. And yes, I recognize I am late to the party, but we are talking about the decision by President Biden to pardon his son, Hunter Biden, for some criminal allegations that had already been proven beyond a reasonable doubt in court, and then apparently to issue a large swath of a pardon that basically covers about 11 years of activity, including some time where he was on the chair of Burisma. Okay. But anyways, this is a big problem for lots of reasons, but now that I've had an opportunity to kind of reflect on this, I think that this sets a horrible, horrible precedent, and I think this does some significant damage to an industry, the criminal justice system, that actually I'm kind of fond of because I made my living there. You see, one of the worst things that could ever happen to any industry, and this happened to the scientific community over the last few years as well. This has happened to the law enforcement community over the last few years. And yes, this has happened to the justice system as well, which is the worst thing that could ever happen is you allow politics to seep into your industry. You see, politics is like rancid floodwater. It will occupy any space that you allow it to. And once there, it will fester and continue to ruin the very foundation upon which your structure rests on. And so today, we can use what's happened with Hunter Biden to kind of do a little soul searching about a couple of issues. And here's the soul searching I want to do. Number one, is our justice system currently being weaponized against individuals? Because that would be a big problem, right? That would be a big problem which would absolutely undermine the credibility of the justice system in its entirety, okay? And then number two, is anyone actually above the law? Because that too would be a big problem, and that would absolutely erode any level of confidence that the American public has in our justice system and for justifiable reasons. Okay, well, number one, let's talk about, is the justice system weaponized? Because if we are using the justice system as a sword, not so much as a shield, well, we've lost the entire purpose of why we have a justice system, okay? Now, we could start with two kind of horse crap impeachments. We could start with the whole Russian collusion investigation and all of that, or we could just go through a laundry list such as this. The Jack Smith prosecution of President Trump over the January 6th incident. The now dismissed Jack Smith prosecution of President Trump in the state of Florida for the documents case. The election tampering charges against President Trump by DA Fani Willis in Fulton County, Georgia. The Stormy Daniels hush money convictions, because apparently paying hush money is a crime in the state of New York, which now the president is facing 34 felony convictions of. Oh, the New York business fraud case, in which there has been a civil judgment of $454 million levied against President Trump, and his family has been precluded from running or doing business in the state of New York for 3 years. Or the E. Jean Carroll defamation case, now with a judgment of $83 million. Now, if you took a look at any one or all of those collectively, you might sit there and go, seems like the criminal justice system is being weaponized against somebody, doesn't it? Well, then, of course, when you take a look at President Biden's statement, the statement that he himself released when he pardoned his son, well, I guess we could take the president at his own words, because he says, the charges in his cases came about only after several of my political opponents in Congress instigated them to attack me and oppose my election. Then, a carefully negotiated plea deal, agreed to by the Department of Justice, unraveled in the courtroom, with a number of my political opponents in Congress taking credit for bringing political pressure on the process. Had the plea deal held, it would have been a fair, reasonable resolution of Hunter's cases. No reasonable person who looks at the facts of Hunter's cases can reach any other conclusion than Hunter was singled out only because he is my son, and that is wrong. There has been an effort to break Hunter, who has been 5.5 years sober, even in the face of unrelenting attacks and selective prosecution. In trying to break Hunter, they've tried to break me, and there's no reason to believe it will stop here. Enough is enough. Well, in the very next paragraphs, he goes on to then state, of course, that he has full faith in the criminal justice system. But there he is, criticizing the criminal justice system for being politically motivated to go after his son. And I will point out, President Biden, that that is your own Department of Justice you are commenting on. But you see, then we got to take a look at the other issue here, which is the statements that the Democrats have made for years and years and years, that no one is above the law. Nobody is above the law. And we heard during President Trump's first 4 years in office, the rule of law, the rule of law, the rule of law. But as we found out earlier this week, there are certain individuals who are in fact above the law. And one of those individuals right now is Hunter Biden. Now, I want you to realize that we now have a presidential administration who implemented a policy through the ATF that would try to shut down otherwise lawful and responsible gun stores for mere clerical errors. But he has now pardoned an individual who intentionally lied on an ATF form. And while the mainstream media and the Biden administration can spin this as this is a crime that is not ever really prosecuted, one only need to do a Google search, and we'll link it up down below, of all of the statements that the ATF routinely releases in which they are bragging about the fact that they are prosecuting cases for doing exactly this, making material misrepresentations on a Form 4473. So how then can this administration reconcile their decision to pardon Hunter Biden while at the same time turning the ATF loose on every single FFL who made a simple clerical error? And because the president decided to pardon Hunter for 11 years worth of activity, Is it likely that we're going to see a lot more pardons, many of which of his own family members? Or could we in fact see pardons of any of the district attorneys or U.S. attorneys or special attorneys who are appointed to prosecute President Trump? And now that we have basically just turned the pardon from something that is supposed to be out of presidential grace into a political tool, what stops the incoming president then from pardoning every single person who was ever implicated in the January 6th riots? Now, am I suggesting that every one of those January 6th individuals deserves the punishment they got? Absolutely not. It has been an absolute atrocious and disproportionate use of the criminal justice system. However, are there some individuals who did engage in activity on January 6th that warrants criminal punishment? The answer to that question is yes, they did. But here's the biggest problem, America, okay, is that in a world of subjectivity, in a world where there is a spin, a slant, or an angle on every piece of information you receive, we all need that safe harbor of objectivity. And that safe harbor of objectivity used to be the scientific community, and it used to be the legal system. But it is no more. It is no more because we have allowed politics to seep into both of them. And with that, we have allowed the confidence that we as a country have in those institutions to be diminished and in many ways completely eroded. The biggest problem with President Biden choosing to pardon his son, what you did is you undermined the entire criminal justice system, a system which has been undermined over and over and over. And for that reason, there is a legitimate question why any American would ever have confidence in this system moving forward. Listen, we're going to go ahead and link up the president's statement down below so that you can geek out on every word that he chose to use in describing this. If you got any other questions about this or anything else related to what's left of our Second Amendment rights, you guys should know how to get a hold of Washington gun law by now. But if you don't, that's okay. That information is down there in the description box. If you got an idea for a video we should be doing around here, all you got to do is click on that link right there and let us know. If you want to subscribe to our monthly newsletter, the ability to do all of that is right down there in the description box. And then finally, and most importantly, let's everyone remember that part of being the lawful and responsible gun owner, like we talk about all the time here, is to know what the law is in every situation, how it applies to you in any instance that you may find yourself. Until next time, thanks for watching. Stay safe.